Thank you for tuning in to Look Before You Speak. And today we have a very special guest, the gifted Missoula artist, Courtney Blazon. And, we're going to spend some time with her drawing, but also looking through and exploring her process. As you know, a lot of times in television, art programs focus on images for less than 1 or 2 seconds. So we want to take some time and really focus on the images and just slow down and begin to look at them and talk about them. And thank you so much for being here today, Courtney.
Thank you for having me.
And you're kind of known as a draftsman and someone who can draw.
Yeah. I am, which is exciting because it's quite literally my favorite thing to do. So that's good. So.
And you were explaining you branched out into using the tablet as well as working on paper or a paper matrix.
Yes. I picked up the tablet using the Apple Pencil. Last Christmas, I decided I was going to dive in and see, because just as a working artist, I wanted a medium that I could do actual jobs for people that maybe was a little more mobile for me. So if I had a day where I had a bunch of meetings or something, I could just bring this with me and still be able to work in between things. And I'm finding it surprisingly fluid and wonderful to use, although it's brought me to really loving paper. I mean, it made me love my paper products and my messy materials even more now that I've been using this, because it's so sterile in some ways. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to interrupt you. I know that you wanted to work on a drawing.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my pencil and jammed as we're talking, which is an artist technical detail.
Yeah. And you work with pencil lead, and I know you work with colored pencils as well.
Well, yeah, no, a lot of my big pieces have been with Copic markers, which are an alcohol-based marker, and I use them on a printmaking paper, and they have this beautiful way of blending, which makes them extremely watercolor-y. And recently I've been doing a lot with oil pastels. I think it's because I need an antidote to the sterile feeling of the tablet. I've been really craving that messiness. And I use this beautiful Mylar. Okay. This is just my favorite surface to work on. It is smooth as silk. I overlay it a lot of times with different things.
You're able to erase pencil graphite off of here. Really
absolutely,
easily.
And it's great. You can do a lot with smudging, and a lot lot of times I'll put a really deep.
Yeah, forgive me. I didn't.
No, that's fine. I'm just trying to get this pencil to work as we talk.
Now, can you, while you're getting that done, and can you tell me? When you first started drawing, do you have early memories of when you first started drawing?
Yes. I don't remember a time that I wasn't drawing, and as evidenced by my mom's archives, I was drawing from the time I could hold a drawing utensil. And I remember I started to do paper dolls was the very first thing I was interested in doing, and that's sort of vibe has carried over. I love drawing clothing on people and things like that. So definitely paper dolls were the first thing, and people for sure. And then when I was probably 10 or 11 and I really started to get into reading classic books, I would illustrate the book covers. Even then, it was I knew that was the thing. It was either I was going to write what was in the books or illustrate the covers in my head, but I have a version of Lord of the Flies that I did when I was 10 that I was so proud of. I was obsessed with that book. So.
Okay. Wow, so you've been at it a long time.
Yeah, and I think by the time I got to high school, it became pretty clear to everybody that that was about all that I was gonna work at, you know. So I focused pretty heartily on that aspect of my life. Maybe I should just draw on my tablet because I can't get them. So I've been using the tablet. We can maybe just move this over.
Okay.
I've also been I use a iPad and this Apple Pencil, and I've been using this for a lot of my work projects.
We didn't see your code there. No.
Oh, yeah. It's historical, of course. It's a historical year of significance.
So these are all your drawings?
Yeah, so
okay.
I do them. I mean, when I first got it, I was just practicing. So
and what program is this?
This is Procreate on the iPad Pro.
Okay.
So I tasked myself with trying a sort of very, not a very complex sort of composition, but I wanted to see if I could get something that was multi-layered. The beautiful part of this is that I could draw each aspect of this on a different layer. So I started with this figure of this marionette.
Mm-hmm. And so these are all drawn with this?
This is all drawn with this. And
on this scale?
So you can do this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
okay.
and sometimes when you see computer art, it has sort of a glossy feel to it. I really wanted to work on keeping it truer to the way my artwork looks in real life. So I've kept it very loose in the way that like the mark making isn't smoothed out, because that's how my regular art is. It's choppy and my lines are contained, but what's within it is a little more.
Well, you're absolutely right about achieving the same effect that you achieve on paper here.
Yeah, it's the same. I'm pretty pleased with that.
So how many layers are on here?
This is only 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 5 layers, so not too many. And then. So for some other pieces, and I use it it's great because I can use it as a work tool.
So then how do you print these out?
So then I can take it and I can share it with my computer, and I'm able to print it off on my home computer, or I can send it to the print shop just from this, which is great. It's great for things like
So you can print that any size?
Any size, yep. That one I made 16 by 20.
Okay.
And so I've printed it 16 by 20, and it looked kind of awesome. I mean, you can't get so it's significant when it's at its full size.
Yeah.
There are some restrictions in terms of how many layers you can get for the size of things. I did a mural out at Big Sky Brewing Company that's 30 feet by 15 feet, but I did all these beer cans and bottles that are vintage, and I did them all on here. So I just did those in different layers, like I did different images, and then see how you can get really in there and it barely loses its quality.
Yeah.
So that way when it's printed, a couple feet tall, and then I just put all the pieces together in Photoshop later. That's a little different than how I normally work.
Yeah.
Here's an example of how I'm using them in a cross way. I drew this image in real life, analog. And now I'm going to go in and create paper doll outfits for her. But in here, because it'll be easy using a separate layer, I can draw it right on top of her. So that's a great cross way that I can use this tool. And then I just did this big project for all the characters. I don't know if you guys know the films of Miyazaki. He did Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke. But I created this whole world of characters for them. And this was quite complex to do because it's a lot of different things. So I created them all in their own palettes. But I can do something kind of cool, which is with each piece that you create. This was a portrait I did of my dad when he was young. And I just kept it extremely loose.
Yeah.
I tasked myself to only spend a couple hours on it, which is that's hard for me to do. But the cool thing about this is every time you work, it plays a relapse or it plays a time lapse replay. And I can go through it kind of faster, but then you can see. So I approach it in the exact same way I would with anything, you know. So I love that feature too, because then people can kind of see how you start. So this is kind of what I've been using.
You know what? I just want to interject.
Oh, sure.
Just, this is really wonderful to see this bridge between paper and the computer, and that your language is really consistent throughout.
Right, yeah, that was definitely my main...
I mean, oftentimes I've witnessed computer-generated art from somebody that I'm familiar with their work in drawing or painting, and there's a different feel to it. But this is really seamless.
Thank you. That's what I've definitely made the attempt to try. I am getting to use some of the cool features like snap two lines that make everything straight. I don't use rulers in my own work, no matter how many lines I have to do. I'm just like, I just want to figure it out on my own, but that's kind of enchanting that you can make like a perfect pattern. But yeah, so this is great, but you know, I think in the end, like nothing could replace this.
Right.
Well,
this couldn't occur without this.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, I needed those many years of drawing to be able to be confident.
Let's look at some of your notebooks.
Yeah. So this is the notebook I use for all my. I've got I think 15 of these. I just this is just what I work in. So I do a lot of note taking, but I do all my little sketches for projects in here. I wish that I had thought to have images of the real ones so you could see sort of from this to that.
That's quite all right.
But yeah, I do a lot of note taking, as you can see.
So this, even though you executed this today out of your imagination, you really rely on notes and research.
I do, yeah. I would say that even if I don't draw something out or sketch something out, I refer to my notes. I almost have a checklist of the things that I want. You can see my initial sketch for that marionette girl in here. I'll just flip through so you can see a few more. Like here is, I mean, here are two pieces that I just finished, and they're both like over 4 feet long. And as you can see, the sketches for them are extremely tiny, but the notes are really important. And I actually cross things out as I do them, because it's usually telling the story that I'm feeling real. But I do, to me, this is pretty, I know exactly what that composition is. For me, I have to work out the composition here. And I do that in a lot of ways. And I do it for jobs particularly, because I do need to, when I'm doing a commission for somebody, have at I'm doing some labels for alcohol bottles. So this is sort of my page of like, you know, ideas for them. Brainstorming. And if without brainstorming, who else could read these notes? I mean, that's the great thing about being an artist is you can just go, well, I know
it's wonderful. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, so I do stuff like that. And then for particular projects, if they're really, like, I'm still working on this big project I did about the Year Without a Summer. So I keep bigger notebooks when it's a project that I'm going to keep working on. And these sketches I did a lot more perfectly because I really wanted to work it out here before I did. So if you looked at the original or the final piece, it would look extremely similar to this. But then my notes are so important in these things because I was practicing volcano. You know, this is what volcanoes look like. But this is an 8-foot drawing, so you can see the drawing is pretty much the way it's supposed to be, but then my note-taking is extremely important. This is another 8-foot piece. So my notes, lots and lots of notes.
You know, and we were talking about this earlier, about discovering a scale and process that works for you. Now, not everyone in life is going to be able to execute this. You've discovered this thing that works in your process, and this scale. It's really remarkable. It's great.
I know people look at this notebook and they're like, this is like one of those movies where you're like, the person's crazy, and then they discover this notebook and they're like, oh no, she's really crazy.
No,
no. Inspirational poems. I mean, it's just, that's the way that my brain
it's wonderful.
kind of processes information. So these I got a little looser with, but if you looked at the originals, they'd all be, or
pretty
the
close.
final, they'd be pretty close, because that's how I sort out the composition. Because I don't want to find that out when I'm doing the piece. I want to find out other things when I'm doing the piece, and that's sort of, for instance, color. I just let that happen. The color part is also another part where I let my instincts take over, and that's been really lovely for me. And the other thing I want to just bring out is, as a working artist, I find and I'm sure this is true of other, just people in general, I have to stay organized. I cannot, my brain is so full of information that I've found this system of sort of keeping, this is where so I have all these notebooks on my desk all the time, but this is how I keep track of what I have to do for projects. I keep pages of notes about projects. This book has the pages are all numbered, and it has an index. So I can go back and go, okay, what page when were you doing your doll sculpture narrative drawing notes? And I can go back to 65 and 66 and look at what I was thinking about for that, which I love.
You know, oftentimes artists get a bad rap for being disorganized.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's often just a different way of organizing.
Absolutely.
And I do not know, maybe one time in 30 years that an artist was late for a reception.
Right.
Or late for an art opening. Or, you know, I find the opposite to be true of the stereotype is that artists and musicians and dancers particularly are extremely organized and extremely committed to schedule, practice, commitment, and you know, if you're disorganized, you have difficulty surviving.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because the actual act of being creative is about letting that disorganization free, or being free with sort of letting your...
Organizing the chaos.
Right. I mean, for me, like, this isn't a great thing I do, but I do practice a bit of sleep deprivation, and because it gives me this, I get somewhere with it in my projects that I don't get to otherwise. And it's because I get all these thoughts brewing, and then all of a sudden they just sort of, it's like as if they were milling around and then they all decided to join a party at the same time. And then I'm like, I can see it, and then I can draw it. So I think it's true, but I don't think I've ever been, I'm occasionally a little late for things, but I've never not made it to things. I've never been late, like I'm not late on deadlines.
Well, look at this organization.
Right.
I just think it's a different way of looking at the world, and people have a stereotype, well, they're just the artist, and they're kind of loopy or whatever. But in reality, it's, you know, I think a lot of times artists are born and come out of the womb and go, what kind of world is this? You know? And they're going, I got to find a way to cope with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And move along and, you know, go through school and kind of get separated, and then are kind of thrown in with the, you know, people that are like them, and then they get separated, and So, you know, I can't tell you what a wonderful conversation this has been.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Of course.
And I think we're probably just about out of time, and I just want to thank you for coming in, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
You've been really inspiring today.
Oh, good.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.